I work with boys, and quite often, if I even mention the word father, there is a shift in their demeanor. I mean, there is some young men get extremely upset, some shut down, and when asking the question about black men, a lot of them just don't have a true understanding or a strong reference to a black man.
What up? What up? We are back at it again.
We
Uh
back.
Episode 4. You know what
You
I
know, last
mean?
time I said episode 3, I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
episode
So
4.
episode 4, man. The heart of the father, right?
Yes, the heart of the father. And last week, you got it.
See, you know what I mean? We get this boy.
You got it. And
Yes,
bro,
sir.
last session was amazing, man. I mean, girl dads versus boy dads, or no verse at all. Just understanding the importance of what it means to be a dad to a young woman, and what it means to be a dad to a young man, and the challenges and the rewards of both. You know, it just speaks to the importance of fatherhood. I love that.
Yeah, man. It was really dope. You know what I mean? And their internet was horrible.
Oh, mine started tripping too.
Yeah. Oh, I said there. So you and James internet. So so it's only you and I tonight. So I just hope you don't start, twitching that you don't start
No,
twitching on me. You know what I mean?
no. I got everything corrected. I called my people and I said, "Yo, make sure the net is working." So
So
I've
so
turned
you
off
got
every device. Ain't nothing connected but this laptop.
okay, all right, good, man. Good. So listen,
Good.
man, Cole, let's tap in, man. When we were talking this week, man, I said, you know what, I been hearing this term a lot, and especially more lately.
Yep.
I don't know if it has anything to do with the pandemic or what's really going on, man. But I wanted to talk about this term deadbeat, right? And the thing about is, before I wanted to talk about it, I just started asking people, started doing like my own little poll. And
Okay.
what's funny, bro, is that everybody that I asked, I said, listen, when you hear the term deadbeat, who and what do you think of?
Okay.
And they said so many things, but the one common thread, bro, was when they think of deadbeat, they think of black men.
A word.
For real. And these were black people, bro.
So you know, I had to step back, right? I had
Yeah.
to sit.
Uh, I'm but that was one of the things that um that shocked me, right? And I'm asking them like why why do you think of that? And some of them just could not, you know, explain why, but that was the one thing that they associated with the term deadbeat, right? And then it made me think about years ago, man, with my daughter who is 18 now. I replicated that one study where they showed the little kids looking at the doll babies and seeing if one
Right.
was pretty, one was ugly, that whole thing.
Right.
But I turned the volume down and I did the same thing. I asked my daughter, like, yo, which one is pretty, which one is ugly, which one is smart? And yo, she answered just like she was living in the 50s and 60s, and she associated um dark doll babies as not being attractive, the white babies smart, and the whole nine. I'm like, yo, we don't reinforce that type of behavior,
Right.
right? we
Right.
we don't reinforce that. And so what happened, man, what I realized, bro, is that, a lot of it was just what she was exposed to, what she was exposed to on television,
Yep.
right? So it was like where she got that narrative from, and she was only exposed to like Disney and things of that nature. And so, she didn't see a lot of young girls that looked like her, so I can tell like that was probably the thing that reinforced that behavior. So it's the same thing where I'm talking about why I bring that up as it relates to, I'm thinking it's the same thing, is what is probably, shown on television, that would make some people unconsciously think of black when they hear the term deadbeat, think of black men.
No, no,
So I want to. So you
I,
speak.
yeah, I agree with you. I was sitting back, kind of pushed back a little bit when you said the idea that black folks were saying that they saw black men or thought when they thought of deadbeat, black men were the first people that showed up in their minds. But then I was like, well, that kind of makes sense too. If I look at the yellow arches, the first thing I think of is McDonald's. If I look at the Nike sign that's on your shirt, I can think of the Nike Let's Do It. And so there's advertisement that kind of highlights exactly like what to envision because it's, you know, the media is saturated with it. So I think that when we think about the narrative of black men, the question has to be asked, what is that narrative and what stories are being told in the media about brown and black men as it relates to fatherhood or just men in general? And then I can understand exactly why that might be. I also have to think to myself, well, who's on television right now? If we were to explore when I was growing up in the or early 80s, 90s, we had Heathcliff Huxtable, we had George Jefferson, we had James Evans, we even had Samson. No, not Samson and Son. What's his name?
No, no.
Fred Sanford. Yeah,
Yeah,
Sanford's son. And we had those men that kind of exuberated the example of fatherhood. James Evans was, man, that was a straight shooter, you know, growing up in the hood. So you know he had to raise his children and parent very differently. Then you had Heathcliff Huxtable, middle class or upper class black family, who parented very uniquely and different. And so there were at least some examples that you could turn to. But now, when I think about the only show that I can think of is Blackish, which has, you know, been a highly amazing show in terms of hitting topics that are associated with black and brown families. But man, I could totally see why you would see a dad as a deadbeat, and the first person you think of is black men, because the narrative that has been painted about black men since, I would say, since the end of the civil rights movement. It seems like that has been the shift when we think about welfare and the war on drugs. I mean, the first people that were tackled and hit, and the war was really on, was black and brown communities. I mean, poverty. So black
yeah,
men were almost taken completely out of neighborhoods and communities and placed
yeah,
into the penal system. So, I mean, I work with boys, and quite often, if I even mention the word father, there is a shift in their demeanor. I mean, there is some young men get extremely upset, some shut down, and when asking the question about black men, a lot of them just don't have a true understanding or a strong reference to a black man. So, I mean, I was one of the
yeah,
kids that grew up without my dad too. So, I mean, the goal is to change that narrative, which I think practitioners like me and you and so many others that we work with are desperately trying to do that. But this is
yeah,
hard work.
yeah.
It's
It's funny you say that, man. And I saw this. I'd never seen the movie when I was smaller. I watched it when I got older. My father-in-law mentioned this one movie to me when I started getting into the fatherhood space,
I know
and it
exactly what
sticks
you
with
about
me.
to say.
Claudine, right? The movie
Claudine.
Claudine. I'd never seen it when I was a kid, but I just look at the episode, like the certain segments, and um how he had to be hid, his shoes had to be hid, he couldn't be in a home, and it was used as like a funny or like, hey, this is our life, like just something in jest. But that was the
Right.
reality. Like, it wasn't a movie for people living that real life, and
Right.
that was the real life of a lot of people, where it wasn't okay to have a black male, the father, in the home, especially when the social worker comes.
Absolutely.
Because if the social worker comes and he's there, bro, you're not getting help and assistance.
Right.
And
Right.
I just think about it, bro. Some years ago, a few years ago, when my family and I, we were struggling. So just imagine, it's just like, yo, we can't help you, Sean. You have to leave in order for me. Here I am, an involved dad.
Right.
So just imagine, we hit a tough spot, and the only way that I can get assistance is if I'm not present. The only way that my children could get assistance if Sean is not there.
Right. Well, this goes back to all the work that you and I have been doing in terms of trying to convince, well, I don't even want to say convince, trying to teach and educate people on recognizing that fathers are not replaceable and are not valuable on the basis of their finances. So the thing is that fathers can be replaced if I only see him as a wallet versus seeing him as the intangible things that fathers bring and represent when it comes to the what happens to the lives of children and families. But if I only see him as something that can be replaced financially, then of course we're going to eliminate him out of the picture. But also we got dads who have bought into the narrative too that their only true worth is the worth that they have in their pocket. And if they don't have it, then they're not worthy enough or they don't even believe they can show up. And so I think that's the other piece of this puzzle. We got to continue to change the narrative to help dads recognize that, man, you are much more valuable than any dollar bill or number sign that is related to the zeros in your bank account.
That's real, right? But this is the thing, right? But a lot of times, like, yo, bro, we are our own worst enemy, right? Like, because like we rock out with one another, or we challenge. Like, if you don't have the right shoes, you don't have this, yo, we killing you. We you mean if you don't have girls, growing up, we killing you. So
Yes.
now you as a male, you are growing up early, you already have this drive, right? But now, like, you growing up, it's just like, yo, I gotta conquer to have all these women, and I have to conquer to get all this money. I remember I grew up in the crack era. I grew up in the 80s, bro. Like, it was like overnight, dudes who I was playing video games with, or I was playing like the little electronic, football stuff with, they started getting bread, bruh. Like, they started getting cake. And so now all of the girls want them. These jokers was not the most attractive, but all the
Yeah.
girls want them because of what they had. And so
Yeah.
now the dudes is putting their worth in what they possess, right? They don't know how to be a father. They don't know how to be a man, but everything was associated with them getting this bread, securing the bag. And so what happens then, they knock this young lady up, for a pair of shoes, the whole nine, like he buying her the earrings, the whole nine,
Yeah.
but he get her pregnant, he out. But my
Yeah.
man, like, yo, I gotta get this cake. It was never about the relationship, it was all about conquering. So what happens is now that he's grown as heck
Yeah.
and he's still doing it. And he looked back and he got like 14 kids and 5 different baby mamas.
Yeah.
But it's us as black males at the same time, like, yo, we gonna still continue to deal with the narrative, but like,
Right.
yo, we have to do better as black men of holding each other accountable, right? Of making sure our brothers in our network, they take care of their responsibilities and they
Well,
know what it is about finances. They know what it is about investment. Like, at one point, man, listen, I played Big Ten ball and my boys knew, yo, I still love my boys. We rock out like, yo, those are my brothers. But it came to a place where they knew there was a shift in me of what my desires were, that I wasn't wilding out. My brothers respect me enough that they didn't even try to put me in a compromised situation. They didn't
mm,
be like, yo, let's go to the strip club. Yo, let's do this. No, because they like, yo, Sean, he doesn't do that anymore.
yeah.
So no, they still do it, at the time, but they like, no, I'm not gonna put him in that position because that's not how he rock out. And we have to be around other males that's gonna hold us accountable. That when we don't show up right, they calling us out. They calling us to the carpet.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting that we're even having this conversation because I've been talking to my son who's 26 and he's telling me, he's like, Dad, the young men that are years younger than me, they're under a whole nother like code as it relates to the level of accountability. I'm not accountable for you at all. I'm accountable for myself mentality. So yeah, cool that we brothers, but bro, I'm trying to do me. And so you either with me or you not with me. And so it's this new era too where he's just saying, man, you'd be surprised how the level of accountability isn't something that people are actually brothers aren't, men aren't always doing that, especially when it comes to this, as he describes this younger generation of young people. But I'm also wondering too, in terms of proximity, how much of those young brothers have access to healthy men that are holding them accountable. The young men that I work with talk a great deal about not necessarily having men in their spaces, let alone have been hurt by so many men that they don't trust them. So imagine not being able to trust a man that looks like you, but then look in the mirror and see the same version of see yourself in that man. I'm like, so it makes it difficult for me not only to trust you because I don't have a relationship with you, but real talk, I can't even trust myself. And so I'm finding it even difficult sometimes to even build that accountability blanket because I have to do the work around building a level of trust to be able to say, hey, that's that ain't cool, bro. But
And that's
that takes
real.
it's a lot of work.
That's real. And the thing about it, man. And I'm not tripping, bruh.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
but the thing about it, and everybody has their own journey. But my thing is like, I struggle with like some of the dads that I work with. Over the years, like I listen to them, and so many of them are super dope and have grown. But it's some that come through and I
yeah,
learned something this week, man, and I want to put you up on game on this, man. And you probably
yeah.
heard this before, but I learned something this weekend when I went to Minnesota. This dude Scott, who worked with people who batter men who batter women, right?
Yeah.
And he says, Sean, this is what you have to understand. He said, when men come to me in my programs, one of the first things I have to do is help them to understand their way of thinking and help them to reprogram themselves because it's their belief system that's putting them in that situation.
Makes
And he
sense.
said, this is the problem. He said, a lot of people and agencies, they give these men tools and strategies. And what happens, we give them tools and strategies, and then they go home and they apply them on that same stinking thinking. And then they come back and they say, Cole, I told you it didn't work.
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
said, you can't give them tools and strategies. You have to first help them to reframe their thinking, and then you give them tools and strategies. Because if you try to give them tools, all they're going to do is manipulate those valuable tools you gave them, but on top of their stinking thinking. So it's important for us, man, to help people that we serve and work with. We have to do a better job of helping people better understand, grow mentally. Because there's one thing me telling the dude to pay child support, right? I'm like, yo, this is your responsibility. You need to do this. You need to do that. Like, you hear me? You need to. You need to. So it's just
yeah,
like, yo, he is forced to pay something. He's doing it out of obligation. He's doing it because he's forced to. He don't understand the why behind it. He don't see the association, none of that, right? So I'm like, yo, I need to reprogram and change the way I'm doing some things because they come and I'm giving them these tools and these strategies, how to co-parent with moms when she come around, when she does this, like this is what you need to do, right? Like,
yeah.
you need to do A, B, C, and D. But I'm like, yo, Sean, and I got to be honest, like, yo, Sean, how much time did you spend helping them reprogram their thinking?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the part of change. The reason why I am the father and the husband that I am today, not because I'm super dope, bruh, but because I got new information and I believed the new information.
So I mean, you hit it on the nail. The
Right? Because I'm
goal.
because I'm like, yo, Sean, you can't be no darn public success, but you're a private failure, bro. You
Yeah,
you can't.
yeah.
You can't
Prob-
do that. Like, you can, but it's whack.
So I gotta. So the goal is to really understand the thinking, which requires us to have to listen and listen without being ready to give an answer, but active listen to it. But then also recognize the belief systems behind why I do what I do. And that's difficult because a lot of what we're really doing is helping folks unlearn the poor habits that they've created by watching other people model what they thought was the right way to do certain things, and
Absolutely, bro.
that's hard.
It's very hard. But
Because
that
now
goes
we're
back to
talking
what we
about
said.
self stuff. This is self.
Yes.
You talking
Yes,
about me? I
bro.
gotta do it with myself. no, bro, just give me the information and I'll try it out. And if it don't work, I can detach from it because it doesn't require me to have to do the internal work that I need to do for myself. And you're spot on, man. I became a better father when I started doing my own work. When I
Yes.
started dealing with my own stuff and I started recognizing what triggers set me off, what upset me, what makes me happy. When I stopped denying the truth, when I stopped lying to myself about what I was doing, and really looked at myself and trusted myself and talked to myself and encouraged myself. All of these things were not things that somebody taught me to do. It was always that outward stuff. It was never, Cole, you got to hear you. You got to trust you, man. When you
Yeah.
have that instinct, you got to believe in that. Um, and then
Absolutely.
not only that though, Sean, too, I had to learn what children really mean. Like I got dads I work with, and I'm working with young fathers who have an understanding of babies that you play with them and you give them back. So you give them back to mom, or you give them to who? You give them to your mother,
Yep.
who doesn't already believe that you know what you're doing.
Yep.
So she already shot you down from at the hospital when you held the baby wrong, and they just took the baby directly back out of your hands. And I got dads that have learned just from that moment. Oh, I'm not good at this.
I'm not good at
No,
this.
I'm not good at this. The first time I was called dad, or the first time I was instructed as a father was when the doctor told me to cut the umbilical cord. That was literally the first time that I learned what it was going to be mean to be a dad. That was the first time somebody actually gave me a responsibility that had an impact on my child and the mother of my child. Here I am separating the both of them after them being together for 9 months, and then I'm responsible for that. But it took me a long time to understand what what babies were and
Yeah.
what I was supposed to do with them. Because I learned, and I don't know what you learned, but I know so many other dads, it's tangible stuff. I
Yes.
learned that all I got to do is pick him up, buy him some stuff, play with him, laugh with him, whoop him if he bad, give him back to his mama, and we good. That's my job. I'm done.
So let's go back here. Like, man, that's so deep, Cole. So my thing is this, bro. Like, when I hear people saying a deadbeat, and then when they associating it with a a black dad, and what you describe here is him not knowing how to do it, he giving it back. Is that a deadbeat? Like, is that a deadbeat because he doesn't know how to parent? Or, the deadbeat is where he's just not around? Like, I don't know. Like, what do you describe as a deadbeat? But my thing is, man, is that we have to change the narrative that when people hear the word deadbeat, that they can't continually associate it with black men. And that's not the case. I have a lot of friends who are dope dads.
Yeah, me too. Me
A
too.
lot.
Me
A
too.
lot. A
Yeah.
lot, bro. Doing hair. I can pull up pictures like right now of my boys, doing their daughters' hair, taking them to the parks, all types of stuff. You know what I mean? And
Yeah. What I'm finding out is that so many people have been bruised. I don't want to say damaged, but have been bruised by black men for
mm,
a lot of things that black men have not gotten support around. So I'm learning too that black men have experienced so much different types of trauma that they don't even know that some of the stuff that they're going through on a daily basis is traumatic, and they're passing this on without even realizing that they're passing it on. Um, because again, we're talking about learned behavior, and again, if that's the narrative, how many black men you think don't believe in that narrative too? So yeah, I'm a deadbeat, and you're quickly titled that. Very, you didn't show up the day you said you were supposed to show up. You a deadbeat. Oh, you didn't pay child support. You a deadbeat. Oh, you didn't. I mean, it doesn't take much to be a deadbeat. All you got to do is not do something right the first time. You can be considered a deadbeat. And I think we don't hold grace. Black men are very yeah. We don't hold grace for a lot of black men. Black men don't get grace and mercy. You get criminalized, bro. You get criminalized. And grace and mercy, that might be on the back end, but I mean, and it goes back to for me in my work, it's how we socialize boys. if boys never learn how to nurture, which is a gift that they also have, how do we expect them to be able to nurture
What
children?
do you mean? What do you mean? So you throw that word
So
nurture out there.
I
What
and
is
I love nurturing because
what is nurturing?
where do boys learn how to take care of something outside of themselves? When is it okay to be really kind? When is it okay to have an emotional place where something tender happens to you from a feeling, and it drives an emotion that doesn't look rough and tough. What happens when you and I see boys do it with their moms. Boys are very nurturing and caring with their moms, or maybe even their sisters. But outside of that space, it can be very unacceptable. I had a little man, a young brother, tell me who was a dad. He said that some his brother saw him playing with an Elmo doll and ripped the head off the Elmo doll and told him he could not play with dolls ever again. Another young man said he was playing with a teddy bear and his uncle set the teddy bear on fire. And they 5, 6, and 7. So it's like, oh, okay, you're not supposed to be tender. My uncle, at 6, I already knew when he came in the room, I had better have. He would do this performance where he would when he see me, he would say, I'd have to pound myself in the chest. Now, mind you, I ain't even got no chest, but I'm like, man up, you a man, you a man. I'm doing this every time I see this dude. So when he walks into the room, I'm hyper already and nervous and anxious. I'm like, okay, I got to be ready. My uncle coming. I got to pound my chest to somehow symbolize manhood. Now I'm 5, 6, and 7. I don't understand that, but I know if I want the approval of this man who is a man that's rare in my life, I better do these kinds of motions.
So, but they say, but
No explanation.
so how can a man who is nurturing still protect and provide and be strong and courageous? How can you do that if you're talking about being?
Man, there's a variety of movements and emotions that come with being a man that just goes beyond the thing that we hyper zoom in on. Like we zoom in on being strong. We glorize this idea of protection. Let me tell you something. I have been able to create an environment that is psychologically safe because of my ability to nurture and not be so rah 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 in a space where my sons need me to hold a psychological space for them to be able to come home and say, Dad, I just broke up with this girl and I'm really hurting right now. And guess what? I think I'm gonna cry. Better yet, I'm crying right now. And I say something like, well, you know what? Guess what? We gonna do a self-care day, bro. I can see you not even in a space to go back to school for the day. We gonna do something different, and we just gonna chill and we gonna hang out. And I learned that was really important for him because he needed a space. He just had his heart dealt in a certain type of way that he's never experienced before. And if I would have been the dad that I know many other boys might have, yo man, suck that up, and you can go out there and do all this other stuff. He may not be able to have that spot in his heart. I mean, we talking about the the heart of a man can be impacted in a great way, but it doesn't start. Most of the stuff we're seeing with men doesn't start when they're men. It's been happening since they were boys.
Yep, yep.
So we have a responsibility with them as boys to help nurture and support these things for them so that when they become men, they're better well equipped to navigate some of this tough stuff.
And I want to tap into something that you mentioned, right? When you talked about, your own son who went through an ordeal, right, where his heart was broken and he, showed emotion, right? So this is a thing. I'm, in my new book that I'm writing, Broken Boys Become Broken Men, right?
Whew.
And there's a chapter
Mm.
in there, a section that I talk about where men cry, but they cry different.
Yeah, yeah,
Men cry different.
yeah.
And the
That's
thing
good.
about men just cry different, bruh.
Yeah,
Because like you said, you created a psychological space for your son to come and literally cry.
yeah,
But in most cases, men don't cry that way.
yeah,
And so when I'm talking about when men cry different, a lot of times they crying when they're screaming,
yeah,
when they are pounding their chests, when they are cussing you out. That is a form of them crying.
Yeah.
And they just don't know how, or they don't feel comfortable enough to show you or to tell you that they're hurt, that they're afraid, that they're discouraged. They don't know what to do. So
Right.
they cry out,
Right.
but they cry out totally differently. And we get caught up on the outward action instead of making that man tap in to say, you know what, I need you to look at this. Like, what's why is it not safe? Why is it not safe? Why are you choosing to express this? Like, what's really going on?
Yeah. That's the deepest part of this conversation, right? Because if I had been able to express my emotions when I had them as a kid, then I would be more inclined to use them as a man. But I learned that you can't cry outwardly because that could be dangerous. You gotta scream in order to be heard. You gotta cuss somebody out to be seen. Like, these are the things that you have to do as a boy to navigate into the role of what it means to be a man. But had there been a psychological space for me as a boy growing up with healthy men and healthy moms and healthy villagers to say, son, we're going to walk you through these emotions and help you understand and name them. Because that's another thing. We've got men, I'm including myself, didn't know how to name what I was experiencing. I knew I was hurting, but I didn't know how to name it. And once you
That's
give it a
real.
name,
That's real,
it's
bro.
like, so, imagine walking around not knowing what was happening, not knowing the name. You don't know what to call it, and no one's calling it out the right way because the only thing that they're doing is reacting to what they're seeing in front of them. But underneath all of that is I am like you just described. I'm crying, but it
Absolutely.
doesn't look like that.
And
And
you know,
so,
and so for women, if you are on here, right? Like, I just encourage you, right? And I know we supposed to be talking, and you guys know me by now, and you definitely know Cole, that we'll shift wherever we think the
absolutely.
audience need to be, right? So we still, going to tap into the part of the deadbeat, but what I want to share with you is that it's important for you to know how your man cry, even without him crying. He's like, man, I haven't cried in years. You have to pay attention. He still cry. He may not shed a tear, but he still cries. Right? There are emotions that take place on the inside of him. He react to stuff. Does he shut down and he like, I'm not talking? He isolate himself and go, in the basement or wherever. You have to pay attention to how he cries. And like Cole said, you don't know how to name it, but I'm telling you, there are different forms of how men cry, and it look different to each man. And you have to be aware of when he's in that space so you can help him come out of his cave.
Whew. Because
Because a lot of times what will happen, men are going to cave and be like, yo, you know what? I'm taking my liquor, I'm taking my internet, I'm taking my porn, I'm taking my money, I'm taking all of this in my cave, and I don't have to come out. I don't
yeah,
have to come out because I have everything that I need in my cave because it's
yeah.
safe to them. And you have to be wise on how you enter that cave and how you call him out of that cave.
So what I also hear too, because I always think to myself too, women are carrying so much themselves, right? And so what I also hear you saying is that it is not the responsibility of a woman to. I, I feel like the a responsibility of a woman to her partner is to find ways to encourage him to hear himself, and to recognize what is going on with him, and to encourage him to make some steps in doing some healing work, right? Because I think what I've also been learning too about just parents is that and I work with kiddos who have some troubling and challenging behaviors, is that I'm encouraging parents to be behavior detectives and look past what and not look past by not holding kids accountable, but look at the behavior and try to really understand what need is being met behind that behavior. And that can be really hard if the behavior that is being displayed in front of you is tackling and pushing buttons on you. If you find you
Yep.
get triggered by him cussing you out, and then next thing you know, you match that energy with cussing him back out. So one of the things that I also hear you saying to women is saying, hey, when he gets to that place, one of the best things that you can do is not match that energy, but
Yep.
try to listen to what is the need being met that you can't hear versus respond to the behavior that you're seeing in front of you.
Yes, sir.
And that is a skill
Yep.
because it is hard not to personalize something that feels like it's an attack against you, but we find in behavior that is not against you, it's an unmet need or a need that gets met by the actions of yelling and screaming. Because when I yell and scream at you, now I got your undivided attention. But
Yep.
when I don't yell and scream at you, I can't get you to stop looking down at that screen.
Yep.
So it becomes one of those things where it's like, okay, how do we listen to each other by paying attention to the unmet need that we can't see versus the things that we see outwardly? And that is a skill that requires being intentional about your partner and then knowing your partner. And that's
Yeah.
another part of this is
That's
that you have
real.
to know
That's
who
real.
you're with. You got to know them. But it's difficult to know them if you ain't spent time knowing yourself.
Yeah, come on,
Bro,
man.
that's
That's
where
that's real.
yeah,
That's real, bro. You know, and I just gotta give kudos to my wife, bro,
man,
because she really learned how to rock out with your boy.
yeah, yeah,
Like for real, she really
yeah.
learned because, bruh, I was shut down. I would walk in the house and I wouldn't talk to you for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. Like,
Bro, me and you share. That's
oh,
me. That's me.
you
That's
we
me.
pissed. We don't supposed to be talking. Like,
Yeah.
yo, we ain't gonna play this
No,
game. We ain't
no.
gonna play this game, and we ain't gonna even leave out of this house and try to act like to everybody like we perfect.
Yeah.
Because when we leave out of here, I'm just not gonna say anything to you.
Yeah. Were you the kind like you get upset and then that people start asking you what's wrong, Sean? What's wrong? Do you normally be like nothing?
Yeah, I'm like, yo, I'm good. Like nothing. Like, no, I'm chill. Like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good.
And
I'm
then they
good.
get frustrated with you, right?
Yeah, you mean, but the thing about it, I did it in such a way where they're not gonna keep on prying, right? Like
Ah,
because I'll leave, right? I'll leave. You know what I mean?
okay.
I shut down. Like, yo, I don't want to talk. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
we're not gonna do this. And so where I had to learn that when there was a conflict, which really wasn't a conflict. It was us having a conversation. She want to get to the bottom of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole nine. I saw it as a conflict, right? So through us communicating, I realized what she was doing, and she realized when she did certain things how it would make me go into a deeper cave. And so she learned how to communicate with me.
Yeah.
She learned how to encourage me in the midst of me being a big baby and pouting. And so then I got tired of like, yo, you a grown man, dog. Like,
Yeah.
yo, you need to deal with that. So
Yes.
so I had to take responsibility because you have children, you have a family. Like, yo, how are you telling them to do something and you're not applying those same principles when it comes to you and your spouse?
Yeah.
So I had to get
Well, it's much
serious.
Well, it's much easier to look outside yourself. I could talk about somebody, but man, don't turn that mirror around and have me look at myself.
Oh,
No,
for
I'm
real,
going to
bro.
the bathroom and keep the light off.
Yo,
I don't got to see the bathroom. I know exactly where to aim at the toilet. I'm good. I don't need the
yes,
light on.
yo, listen. I'm still work in progress, right? Like, listen, man. It's still stuff right now that she just like, Joker, are you gonna get this right? And I'm
Yeah,
like, all right, tomorrow. And she like,
yeah. But bro,
Sean,
that's
we
why.
keep on. She like, Sean, we keep on having this conversation. She said the difference between me and you, and listen. We just had this conversation this weekend, and and people know I'm very transparent.
Yeah,
We had the conversation this weekend while we was in Minnesota. She said, Sean, the difference between me and you is that you know what to say, and you apply all of that stuff, and you like, babe, you're right. I'm gonna work on it. And so I say the right things to get her to stop, but she said, you don't change that behavior. She said, "Whereas me, I don't like it when you call me out. It's uncomfortable. I may push back a little bit,
Yeah.
but I change the behavior."
Yeah.
She said, "Which one is better?" And I'm like, "Yo, don't try to play me out."
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know what? I know I need to do better. Like her, like she's really big on me wanting to exercise. She
Yeah.
like, "Yo, I want you around here." She like, "Yo, you keep on saying I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it, but you never do it."
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
Whew, man. And the fact that you have a wife, man, who is able to see through herself to be able to see in you what she needs to do to help support you and navigate you through. That's that's
Yep.
unmatched.
And,
That's unmatched.
and the crazy, and you talk about the skill, bro. There are times when I know she can say something and she won't even say anything.
Woo.
And it's just like self check, like, man,
Wow.
like
Now
I
that's power.
like I
That's
know,
powerful.
like
That's
I
power.
know it's a
Son,
place
no,
right
son, you got
there.
to wait a minute. You got to go back to that. You just hit something. She knows it. She could say it, but instead she chooses to not.
Oh, yeah. And it's not like giving me a pass.
Right? No, not at
It's
all.
like she's like, you know what? I know where he is and I know how he may respond. I'm not gonna say anything, but he know what
Yeah.
he just did was incorrect. So he
Yeah.
self check. And one of
Yeah.
the biggest thing is that she know the Holy Ghost in me ain't gonna allow me to keep going down a certain path.
Come
But
on, man.
she has developed a skill to where she would challenge me without even saying anything. And I'm like, man, I gotta fix that.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, thank you that you didn't say anything. Because that was a great place for her to say something.
Yep.
Right?
And
Where I forget to pay, I only have one bill I gotta pay, bro. One.
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 My
One.
God.
And it's due on the 14th of every month. And one day I forgot. And it came
Mm.
through where late she saw it. And I know she saw it because we both got the
Right.
notification at the same time. She ain't even say a word. And I'm like, wow. Ain't even say a word. She ain't even say a word. Whereas years ago, she would have started challenging, like, why you ain't pay it? Why you ain't do this? She like, self-check.
Yeah.
And so she has helped me tremendously. So it's important, man.
No, I think everything that we've just talked about today is right on point to the original conversation around, black men and this concept and really a stereotype that black men are deadbeats. I think it is all rooted in how we nurture boys into men, how we support men, and particularly black men, and how we support and honor black fathers. I think it all goes back to how we're treated and how we're respected and how we're seen. And I think that the narrative has to start with us.
Yes, sir.
It,
Yes,
it,
sir.
it can't start outside of us. It has to start with us.
I love it.
Um,
I love
but
it, man.
man,
I love it.
that's what we are. That's what
I
we are.
love it,
And
man.
I'm starting to do stuff where I'm laughing at stuff. I'm like, y'all can't. You still don't believe black men don't take care of their children. Y'all can't. We still not doing that, are we? And if he's not doing that, if he's not taking care of his children, then you got to begin to ask some real deep rooted questions. Where is that rooted from? What's
Yep.
happening with him? Because it's
Yep.
it's not most many, if not all, men that I've worked with have all said when they became a dad and found out they were going to become a father, they were excited about the idea, scared, but also very excited. But there's something that happens through that transition from birth through the co-parenting, through all of that, that makes things very difficult for men to feel that they can even do it. And
Yeah.
so I always say to people, man, keep a window cracked and a door cracked open too, because you never know. Change happens at any given time, and sometimes if we hold space and grace for folks, you'd be surprised how they'll turn it around. They just won't do it sometimes the way we want them to. But shoot, neither have I. I've
Yeah.
never changed the way that people have wanted me to change. I've often changed on my own time when I began to understand the importance of why I needed to change.
Yeah. And
That takes
you let life happen enough Sometimes
Man,
that boy to speed up the
woo,
process.
come on, man. I used to tell my friends, listen, what your dad can't teach you, life will.
Yeah,
And I
life
don't I
will,
don't want life
boy.
to do it to you, but boy, it's something about a life lesson that can
Life is
shift you in the right
unforgiving.
direction. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Seriously,
So now this is
seriously.
cold. This is good, man. Well, we got Thanksgiving next week, and
Yes, yes.
yeah, what we do, we will drop a video for the people to partake in their Thanksgiving festivities, man.
Okay. Very
So
nice.
my brother, it's been a good segment again.
Sir.
I thank everybody, right, for tuning in tonight, man. We appreciate you guys rocking out with us and growing with us as we do this. Please share this live, share it, make a comment, so we can get this word out, man. We want to help men heal, right? We want to help families grow and become stronger. This is what we do, man. So
Yeah.
Cole, I appreciate you, brother.
Oh, brother, thank you. This is what we do. This is what we do. Another episode down, man.
Another episode down, man.
Yeah. Peace out.